Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review Fall Out Boy's 2008 album Folie, Deux. It's good but not great. This is the track listing and these are the tracks I added to my playlist. 9 out of 14 technically with that hidden track. So still most of them here. However, this album is definitely a bit more boring than previous albums from the band. It's basically only late 2000s pop, even though there's a hint of rock on some of the songs. Most of them here are just pop tracks. The sound usually starts strong, but kind of always devolves into a pop song, which kind of sounds like a Train or maybe a Bare Naked Ladies. It's not bad, but it's not great. Rock is still there, but it's pretty subordinate to the traditional pop hooks and choruses. Additionally, the more interesting songs are mostly on the back half of the album. The opening tracks aren't bad, but they aren't super interesting either. They're just kind of okay. I Don't Care is pretty good, but America's Sweethearts is pretty boring. The album never really gets going effectively, and around track 7 you've gotten halfway through without you still haven't encountered any super interesting songs. The second half has some of the more interesting songs, but they're right next to some of the worst ones. 27 and Whams are both pretty strong, but Tiffany Blues isn't very good in my opinion. The album does manage to end pretty strongly. The last 3 tracks flow pretty well together, and West Coast Smoker is a pretty good closing track, which features Debbie Harry of Blondie, which I like. Overall, this is still a good album with listenable songs on it, but most of the songs are just listenable. None of them are actually outstanding in my opinion, and the flow of the album is just not very good. The pop sound is not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And it probably doesn't help the other issues the album has. There were 2 singles released before the album. I Don't Care and America's Sweethearts. There were no big hits off of this album, although I Don't Care may have been slightly popular at the time. My favorite track here is probably track 11, WAMS, Whams. Although it was close between most of those final tracks, 27 is really good and West Coast Smoker helps end the album on a pretty good note in my opinion. I rank this album last out of the 4 Fall Out Boy albums I've heard so far. It's definitely the most boring album I've heard from them so far. It's still good, but all their other albums are pretty great, so it's kind of a step below. Even their debut is more interesting, and that one sticks with pretty much a single sound. Folie, Deux has some variety on individual songs, but the tracks still tend to converge around the same types of sort of choruses and pop sounds. Additionally, there are really no big hits off of this one, so their previous album, Infinity on High, was definitely better both in flow, sound, and overall quality. It's still worth listening to this one, but it's definitely not as good as their other albums. Also, it doesn't take my top spot from 2008. That stays with Pink's 2008 album Funhouse, which is pretty great and definitely more interesting than Folie, Deux in my opinion. So, thank you for watching. Next up is Pink's debut 2000 album, Can't Take Me Home. I really don't like this one, so it should be a pretty interesting review. So stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.